Hello and welcome to the 33rd edition of the Jaguar Report podcast. My name is Gus Logue. I'm here with John Shipley. John, happy Ash Wednesday. Is that what people call it or say?
What do you mean?
Happy Ash Wednesday? Like
What
as
do you
an
mean?
acknowledgement? Like has anyone said it happy Ash Wednesday to you?
What would that? No,
I
just
don't
kidding.
know.
No. That's exactly what they say. Yeah, no. I got
Okay.
that's like
I'm
literally.
just making sure I got the lingo right.
I did it like 30 minutes before we podcasted, and you're supposed to do it all day, so I can't really do it for 30 minutes just for the sake of a Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. So here we are.
Here we are. Well, today we're going to talk about the NFL Combine, which Shipley is going to next week in Indianapolis. Are you going to make it to that like downtown steakhouse that everyone raves about?
I heard so.
Elmo's?
Elmo's. Yeah, I'm going someplace on Tuesday with some riding buddies. I've heard that Elmo's is actually a little overrated.
Well, I
We're
feel like
gonna.
you'd have to try yourself, but
Yeah,
somewhere
well,
on Tuesday sounds
next year.
really good too.
Yeah, I'm going somewhere. I know it's not almost, but I'm going somewhere. Now, I'm excited, man. I've watched the combine on TV for freaking forever, and I've
Mhm.
always, in my time riding, covering the Jaguars, I wanted, to go to the combine. Now I'm able to finally make it happen. Doug and Trent talk on Tuesday. I want to say Doug talks at 12:30. Trent talks at 1. So Tuesday we should definitely know a lot. I mean, that's before the franchise tag deadline. We'll talk about it later, but I'm sure. But man, there's a chance that comes, before anything happens with Evan Ingram. So maybe, you hear from Doug and Trent about that. Trent normally doesn't give away much around this time. I mean, I remember this time last year, his biggest quote from the combine was that the ship hasn't sailed on LaVisca, and it quickly sailed afterward. So we'll see what this year has to offer.
We'll see indeed. Are you going to be doing any podcasting in the great state of Indiana? Or are we going to be 2 weeks for the next show? Just trying to plan ahead here. During the
I'll be
pod.
honest with you, man. I'm going to do my best to put my ear to the ground in Annapolis and find every absolutely off the wall, asinine Jaguars rumor any NFL person gives. So maybe when I get back.
Okay, that sounds good.
Week podcast, yeah.
I'm sure you'll have plenty of stories from somewhere on Tuesday.
That's my plan. That's 95% of the reason I want to go.
Yeah, fair. All right. Well, let's dig into it. First, we're gonna go over what positions the Jaguars will probably be looking at the most, which before we get into it is maybe a little bit irrelevant considering last year, as I read in one of John's articles, they drafted 2 linebackers after paying 1 big time in free agency. So addressing like big team needs isn't really an assumption we should make.
I will say though, I spent that entire draft process projecting them to take Quay Walker at 33rd overall. So I thought they were going to take 1 inside linebacker. The second one was kind of the completely random what the hell one, but 1 inside linebacker, I'll give them. I feel like they make their holes kind of obvious, and then how they treat them is the less obvious one. Like in 2021, receiver was an obvious need, and they're like, okay, Jalen Camp.
Yeah, it was weird. And then like Walker Little is another example on the other side of like kind of going overboard with one position. They have kind of gone overboard with cornerback too. It's just that really only 1.5 have worked out with Tyson and Darius, I feel like. But yeah, speaking of cornerback, I would say that that's the biggest like long-term need in terms of like looking at the draft and the combine. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you look at how the Jaguars roster is set to be constructed when the combine rolls around, like I know no Shaq Griffin move has happened, but eventually it's going to happen. Like that and restructures and stuff has to basically be their first order of business this offseason so that they can get under the cap and, officially sign, some of their guys back. So it's going to happen eventually. So subtract Shaquille Griffin. For now, subtract Trey Herndon. Maybe they bring him back on another cheap 1-year deal. Maybe they don't. But you're left with your cornerback room is Tyson Campbell and Darius Williams. 2 good cornerbacks. Only one of them is really a long-term guy. and then Gregory Jr., Buster Brown, Tavon Campbell. Like you don't have a third NFL corner on your roster, right now. So I think cornerback is, probably far and away the biggest need. Whether you want to call that a nickel corner, whether you want to call it outside corner, it doesn't matter because they're an injury away from complete disaster at cornerback if they had to line up and play today.
Right. Speaking on Darius Williams, he had a pretty good half season when he lined up outside last year, but he's 30 years old, about to turn 31, I believe, and he's pretty small, and he's a likely cut candidate next offseason just because of the way his contract works. So as John said, not really a long-term solution there.
Yeah, no, his contract, like if you just like looking at details of it, it looks like a completely 2-year contract. He has, if they released him this year, it'd be like $12 million, dead cap. They're obviously not going to do that, but if it happened next year, it's not even $1 million. It's 500,000 dead cap if he's released next year, and they save $10 million. That's as much as his cap hit, it's more than his base salaries. It's pretty obvious that his deal is kind of a 2-year deal. So they need to prepare for the long term at cornerback, and they don't. They don't have that. Right now they have Tyson Campbell. That's obviously great, but if you want to catch up to the Chiefs and match with the Bengals and even some of these other teams from the NFC who the Jaguars would like to play in the big game one day, they need to stock up on cornerback and late round flyers like Junior and Buster Brown, like that it isn't exactly what we mean.
Yeah, that ain't it, in other words. I have a question. Kayvon Chason, possible cut candidate. What do you think? I think he's going to get paid $4 million or $4.5 million this year, and he kind of doesn't do a lot.
Yeah, no, I think he's definitely somebody who is has a chance to potentially be out. I know he carries. Let me see. Yeah, you're right. He carries a cap hit of $4.246 million. Dead cap of 1.8. If they were to release him, they end up saving $2.4 million. So if they wanted to get some change here or there, I still think that it'd be a different situation if he didn't accept the role that he was in. Like some guys, being former first round picks, top recruits, if they were where he's at now, which is special teams player and third team defense, their pride, could obviously be hit and they could, make their displeasurement known. But he seems like he's just rocking with it, like he's never, had a problem with it. And I think that they like having him around as kind of, one of those bottom of the 53 guys. So, yeah, he's expensive for a bottom of the 53 guy, but at the end of the day, you're saving $2 million with him. I think overall they'd bring him back because I don't know how much they're going to invest in edge. Even though they should with Josh Allen, being on last year of his deal and Trayvon being a question mark and obviously Smoot here free agents. I still don't know how it seemed like last year they were completely content on Trayvon and Josh Allen just getting 1 million snaps.
So what would you say that edge ranks in terms of the long-term needs? Because I think we both made a top 5 list. I had it ranked cornerback, then defensive tackle, then edge.
That's probably exactly what I have, honestly. I'd go those 3 and then probably interior offensive line after that.
Yeah, I said offensive guard too.
Yeah.
And then the last one I thought was kind of more of a toss-up. I just did tight end.
Tight end. I could see tight end. I got one. Running back?
Okay.
Running back?
I thought about that one, but I don't know.
Etienne to me has 2 more years, as a Jaguar.
Right.
I think. I don't think this is a front office that's going to extend the running back even, maybe 3 more years. Maybe they pick up his 5th-year option. But I just, for as fun as Etienne is, and he's genuinely maybe the most fun player on the team to watch. I could see them needing another starting running back in a couple of years. People will say, that's insane. That doesn't make any sense. But you could have said the same thing about James Robinson a couple of years ago. Leonard and even Leonard Fournette before that.
I feel like it would be a little bit disappointing if the Jags don't address tight end or running back in this draft class, just because both positions seem pretty deep this year, and it's two secondary needs sort of for Jacksonville.
You'd rather draft a running back and take a roll of the dice on a guy than bring back JaMycal Hasty, or would you rather bring back Hasty?
I would definitely roll the dice on a rookie. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to bringing back Hasty, but like then you'd have to draft another Snoop Connor and hope it works out this time. Like, I mean, they had a decent plan. It just like, I mean, I don't even know like if there was any good like super late round players last year. Maybe Zonovan Knight or whoever that Jets running back
I
is.
want to say the Falcons running back Tyler Algier went
Oh yeah, I think he was a fifth
after Snoop.
rounder.
But I was super low on him, so I can't be like, you idiots, you didn't take him. I was like, no, this dude sucks, and he ended up being pretty solid.
Yeah, he was like he turned it on at the very end of the
Yeah,
season.
like all I know all the metrics have him as like, he obviously didn't get the volume as other guys, but like efficiency wise, he was like top 5, top 10.
Yeah, which is like I feel like all came from the last month. I feel like he like was pretty much unheard of up until the very end of the season, and then all of a
Nobody watched.
sudden he's popping
Nobody
up.
watched the Falcons.
That's true. All right, well, so we listed the top 5 needs for the Jaguars long term. Do you think those are like the positions that they're going to be looking at specifically, like in that order? Like they're going to make sure they watch every corner, or do you think it's going to be like a little bit more spread out than that?
I think those are the positions that they're going to place like a big emphasis on. I know, last year the combine happened before free agency, so they obviously paid close attention to receivers. Then free agencies came, they didn't need receivers as much. So I think they're obviously going to have like a balance, like spread out general plan. But I mean, I could also see, even though we point out these positions as their biggest needs on paper, you mentioned it earlier, even though I was saying, Quay Walker for the Jaguars' second pick, and they did end up taking a linebacker with their second pick. I don't think anybody predicted, them trading up into the first for one. So maybe they, end up seeing their needs completely different than we do. Maybe they surprise everybody and take, like a tight end early, even with Evan Ingram still there. Maybe they take an offensive tackle and piss everybody off, or something. So
That would be pretty great.
that I think would be the funniest pick, like just a pick that would make the most people upset.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like I feel like Brian Breesy would make a ton of people upset because he just feels like Taylor
Brian
Brian
Breesy
2.0 now.
Brian Breesy would piss off people.
But yeah, offensive tackle would definitely be funny too.
I forgot about Breesy.
Those are like, and then like maybe like I feel like the next worst one would just be like a cornerback who like everyone thinks is like the 10th best corner when like there's still 3 really good ones on the board.
Everybody hates Ringo, man. He was a better prospect than CJ Henderson was.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I've had like 80% of the replies about Ringo to me being like, "Dear God, I hope the Jaguars don't take this guy." He's not perfect, but he didn't jump out to me as a Jesus. If you take this guy at 24, it was a terrible pick. Like it's not like a Taven Bryan type pick. Like I like Ringo.
You like Ringo more than Cam Smith too, right?
I do like him more than Cam Smith. Yeah, and I like Cam Smith. Cam Smith's like a really feisty corner who I would gladly take that dude in the second round, but he's not a great tackler. He's not going to be very good against the run, and he's not a great deep cover guy. Like it seems like every time he gets beat deep, he bends and grabs at the waist. Like he tried to German suplex a few dudes, and in a couple of games I watched. Like I like Cam Smith. I think his ceiling is probably a bit limited, but he can play man, and he can play zone. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. So him and Ringo are just like different in the sense that Ringo's probably like more of a master of one trait, but he's like he's amazing. I like just press man coverage. Ringo I haven't seen a better cornerback at it yet in the guys I've watched.
Like in the past few years too.
No,
just
this year.
about this year.
Yeah, just this year. Yeah, no, just this year.
Well, I thought you just watched him and Cam Smith so far. What other corners have you watched?
No, I've watched like other guys on the surface. Now, like the guys I'm breaking down, or I finally have gotten access to.
Gotcha.
And I completely don't mean this if any colleges are listening, college all 22, which I think is more beneficial for like watching like some positions like receiver, safety, cornerback. I'm like, I don't mind using the broadcast copy for like watching like running backs or, some offensive linemen and maybe tight ends and stuff like that. But like I've watched like Devon Witherspoon, I've watched Clark Phillips, I've watched Christian Gonzalez, Blue from Stanford. I've watched him, but these are just the guys I've like taken a real deep study on.
Joey Porter.
I've watched a little bit of Porter. He's probably like the big name guy I've seen in the league so far, but I think he's awesome. He's going to get a ton of flags, but I think he's awesome.
He's my favorite, just like based off the two YouTube videos I've seen, basically,
What was the Danny Kelly
and
with the Ringo?
aesthetics.
He like does his like draft guide every year where he makes comparisons, and Danny Kelly, his comparison was like a cornerback who is the son of Joey Porter, and I was like, that's exactly what he plays like, dude. Like cornerback, like he plays like Joey Porter at cornerback, dude.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not old enough to remember Joey Porter, to be honest.
You don't remember Joey Porter?
Well, did he was that the pick six guy?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I think.
I still remember him. Yeah, okay, yeah. He last played in 2011, and you were what, 4?
12.
12. Probably the funniest thing he did during your peak was the most notable thing he did was when the Bengals and Steelers played in a playoff game. He got into a scuffle with a Bengals player in like 2015 while he was like the linebackers coach, and the flag ended up getting thrown on the Bengals. And I'm like, why the hell is Joey Porter on the field? I thought he was retired. He just getting in some dude's face. It was the funniest thing ever, and the Bengals got flagged for it. It was
That's
funny.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Great story, Dad.
Thanks, man. Love you, son.
Okay. I feel like we've talked enough about just positions. So, are there any like measurements or traits or events like the 40 time versus the cone versus weights versus whatever that stand out to you that the Jaguars could be looking pretty hard at?
I think like arm length is definitely something. Feel like with like corners, like probably 31.5 to 32 inches is probably like the cutoff. I feel like guys under 195 to 200 pounds are probably not interested in them. Like you remember Josiah Scott. I think both of us are like fans of his tape. He's gone on to be a fine player
Yeah.
in Philadelphia, but they got rid of him because Trent Baalke and his front, they don't like tiny cornerbacks. It's like just what it is. And he was the shortest in height and arm length and frame corner that the Dave Caldwell regime ever drafted. So I think that just kind of shows like the kind of corners they want are guys who are big, tall, and can run. And I mean that's Tyson Campbell, that's Buster Brown, that's Gregory Jr. The only guy I can think of who's really like kind of a stick among those guys is Brown, but he was what, like a 7th round pick. So I feel like probably like honestly a guy like Ringo is 6'2", 205 pounds. I feel like that's what they're looking for ideally in a cornerback.
Yeah, Ringo definitely feels like the Baki pick. I feel like we've said it a bunch, and like I feel like you mentioned tackling earlier, and I think that's pretty huge. Like just the ability that Ringo brings against the run compared to Smith is a pretty wide gap.
And I think even I want to say honestly the 3-cone is probably a thing that I think would play pretty big into the evaluations. Obviously for bulky, for defensive linemen, for corners, defensive backs, but I think also for the offense. Like I think the biggest trait they emphasized on offense last year, both among like the offensive linemen they added and the skill players they added, was that ability to kind of create laterally and change direction. It was like they went for guys who could do better on breaking routes and stuff, and guys who could be good on movement plays in the running game along the offensive line, as compared to like just dominant gap blockers or downfield stretchers. So I feel like the 3-cone is a drill that anybody who can get basically under 7 seconds in the front 7 is really impressive. And seeing how some of the tight ends run it, because they obviously didn't use Dan Arnold like at all last year because why would you when you have
Hey, careful now.
No,
Well,
what?
Dan Arnold fans out there.
I had somebody ask me during training camp when he was going to overtake Evan Ingram on the depth chart.
What? Wait, when?
During training camp. Ingram had a weird training camp in the sense that he had like some of the offense's worst plays. Like he would drop like obvious touchdowns, but he was also the only dude like making any exciting plays other than ETN. So yeah, but I mean they need another tight end like just for like a body, honestly, behind Ingram. Like if Ingram gets hurt, you don't want Garrett Prince, like running in your 2 tight end sets. Like you need
No, you
another.
don't.
And this is such a deep tight end class. I think you get a tight end in
Right.
the 3rd or 4th round who could be that, kind of Robin to Ingram's Batman.
Yeah. Again, I'd be pretty disappointed if they leave the draft without a tight end, considering its strength. And it's still. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I would be a little bit surprised by like a 1st-round tight end, but I wouldn't rule that out either.
Oh, it depends on me which tight end. Like it can't be Dalton Kincaid. I saw something that he's like leading like some. I want to say it was mock draftable or somebody like he's one of the leading names among like in all mock drafts of the Jaguars in the 1st round. And if you re-sign Evan Ingram, you can't roster Dalton Kincaid.
No,
like, he'd be Dan Harding, man. Like you need somebody who can play who can put their hand in the dirt, And
it depends on how the board falls, John.
Yeah, let the board breathe.
Let the board breathe.
Yeah. You can't take Musgrave. He's more like I really like Musgrave, but he's just an athlete. He's not a blocker. To me, if you're going to take any skill player at 24, Michael Mayer is the only one to me that makes sense. And even him, he's probably not going to produce in the passing game enough to be like, okay, this was a great pick at 24, especially when you're already paying Ingram. But he's really good after the catch. He's really good at the catch point. I think he's a better athlete than he's given credit for. He's not fast in a straight line, but he's like 6'6", 265 pounds. He's a freaking tank. So, of course, he's not super fast in a straight line. He's good in the running game. I mean, he to me, like if you're going to take a skill player, especially a tight end 24, to me it has to be Meyer. Like I don't see any of these other tight ends to where I'm like, yeah, they make sense. Like I've seen Kincaid mock there and I've seen Musgrave mock there. If you bring back Ingram, you can't make that pick. Like, that'd be. I'm trying to think of a pick that was like on the surface.
Honestly, that would probably be worse than Breesy and an offensive tackle. Would be him.
It'd be.
Especially if Ingram's deal is multiple years.
3 to 4.
3 to 4?
Yeah.
Okay. By Friday?
You're asking too many questions.
Okay.
Like I said,
can squeeze in one more.
No. There's some house cleaning that needs to be done first, like that Shaquille Griffin, etc. and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But it's the best part of the offseason.
I got cuts kind of have started around the league already.
Yeah. And Seahawks have like extended 2 guys or something like so it's going to start trickling over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I feel like Mayer is like one of the really good guys who's like almost underrated at this point, and like, or just like one of the guys that everyone is just overthinking. Like he's just a ginormous person that crushes everything in front of him and has been producing at Notre Dame since he was a freshman.
Like he's not the best athlete at 10. Like he's obviously not Kyle Pitts or anything. Like nobody's going to mistake him for a wide receiver, but to me, he's way better than Pat Freiermuth. He's way better than that really big tight end. I think he's better than Hawkinson. Yeah, no, I think he's better. I didn't love Hawkinson as a prospect. He's better than the dude from Colorado, Trey McBride, who the Cardinals. He's a lot like Pat Freiermuth was like a Y tight end who couldn't actually play Y tight end, right? Whereas Mayer, he can actually do it. He can some man football. Some old school lunch pail, etc.
Mm-hmm. That would be fun. I mean,
you could probably make that same argument for Washington from Georgia too, but Mayer is like Washington's a complete projection as like a pass catcher, whereas Mayer has like 2 of the most productive Notre Dame tight end seasons ever.
Yeah, I feel like you can start scheming stuff up for him immediately. That would be the most funnest pick, I think, would be Mayer, just to see what like Doug could cook up in 2 tight end sets.
It would be like it'd be like the ETN pick, like where it's like, no, this is terrible value, doesn't make any sense, shouldn't happen, but hey, it could be fun.
But let's ride.
Yeah, it could be fun.
Could be fun.
Can you imagine ETN if Urban Meyer got more than 1 year in the NFL? That man would have been in hell.
Yeah.
He would have put him at receiver, dude. He
I
would have
think he would have given him like 25 touches a game
put him at
until ETN
receiver.
just broke.
And it happened. He broke in the preseason. They, the funniest story, the beat career. I'm pretty sure I've told you this before. But ETN when he got hurt, James Robinson, like I interviewed him, after Jaguars practiced, just like asking him, his thoughts on ETN getting hurt and stuff that's happened in 2021. He was like, yeah, he came off the field and said he heard a pop in his foot, and then he went back on. Why did you go back on? But he's good now.
That sounds just like J Rob, honestly.
Yeah.
Just telling it as it is.
I don't remember which PR person, like PR staff member it was who was next to us, like observing, but you could see they're like, it was good. It was a good bit, but glad to see ETN beat the Lynn Frank charges.
That's true. He did it. Job well done. Are there any other like prospects names besides Mayer and Ringo and Smith? Like if Breesy, like what are just like first round potential targets that you might be keeping a special eye on in Indianapolis?
Yeah, like I want to see how Osiris Torrance, obviously tests. I think if you're going to go offensive line in round one, I think he's probably the guy that makes the most sense. He obviously on tape, great pass blocker, really good in the running game. So I'm interested to see how he does. We talked about it. Offensive tackle would be a hilarious pick, but what if they went for a guy like Roderick Jones, from Georgia at 24 and just made everybody, throw hammers to the TV. But I'm interested to, like see him because he seems like their kind of offensive tackle. Some other guys, just off the top of my head, I'm interested to see Kalijah Cansey from Pittsburgh, undersized defensive lineman, with really good pass rushing production from Pittsburgh. So everybody's calling him the next Aaron Donald. I think he's just like 6 foot. I want to say he's like 280. And then Antonio Johnson, I watched him deep today. He's a really like just solid player. He good cover guy, tackles really good, sideline to sideline, good size, good speed. So those are some guys in that range that I'm probably going to be keeping my eye close on. I don't know if there are any edges or any guys that make any sense for them there. They're like out of that Miles Murphy range. Maybe a guy like BJ Ojulari, but I mean, he's a little lighter, and I think they would probably target on the edge. But those are probably like the top guys in terms of guys at 24 who I think are probably worth watching for them. And then you, of course, you have the cornerbacks. You have Ringo, Cam Smith, Christian Gonzalez. You have all these guys who are definitely worth watching. Devin Witherspoon, Clark Phillips, was it Deontay Banks? I want to say from Maryland. So there's a lot of different guys to keep track of.
Anthony Richardson. That's what I'll be watching. Him. I'll be watching all the quarterbacks just for the sake of curiosity. Bryce Young's height, Will Levis's everything.
I think the Lions should take Richardson, dude.
Yeah, I agree. Like the Lions or the Giants or the Panthers, I think would be pretty fun.
Yeah, like I'm lower
or
on
the
him.
Falcons.
Yeah. I'm lower on him than a lot of other like draft Twitter people who seem to like him because like I do think he's a better like technical quarterback than give him credit for. Like he can work a pocket, go through reads and stuff like that. But I just think he sprays the football. Like he throws it to different zip codes sometimes. So that's the only thing keeping me kind of out. Like you just
I think
like,
he'll get it under control. I'm planting my flag on him. I told my friends like after he threw like a pass to the flat months ago, I was like, that's a top 10 draft pick right there. Because there's like it's like one of those things where it's like 5 other guys can make the throws that he can make. And then like I've been seeing a lot of like positive clips about his pocket navigation on Twitter. But like basically just on like traits and tools and athleticism alone, I think he's a top 10 draft pick.
I don't see how Levis goes before him. If Levis is like a traits pick, I don't see how he goes before. Like Richardson's faster, he has a better arm. Like
I think it's going to be like the off-field stuff that would put Levis in front. Like I don't know anything about Richardson, good or bad, but like I feel like I've read a bunch of like ESPN like Kuiper reports and stuff like that. That's like, oh, Levis is a great character and was a great leader on the team and is going to do great in front of the chalkboard, et cetera, et cetera.
Kind of guy you want to marry your daughter.
Exactly, John. Precisely.
I thought Levis was better in 2021. I thought he was kind of mid. Like the only game I thought he was actually kind of okay and was coincidentally against Florida.
Yeah, that's fair. And now everyone's like, "Oh no, that's all right. He's just Josh Allen. It's fine."
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen it's good for the Jaguars to not have to be in on this quarterback class because there isn't any dude that I'm like Bryce Young. Obviously, like if you're the best quarterback in college football, there has to be a reason for that. Like there has to be a reason he produces like he does. But and dude he's tiny, man.
Pico.
Who's the only other quarter? Is there any quarterback his size who's ever made it in the NFL? Like it's what, like Doug Flutie probably.
And I'll give him Drew Brees, and that's it.
How much
as like a pocket passer?
I'm gonna ask you the most important question of our friendship. How much did Drew Brees weigh as a 21-year-old?
A $180.
A $180? No.
Stop. 21-year-old.
He was skinny fat.
220. I don't know. Wait.
He was skinny fat. Let me look. 213. Yeah.
I'm thinking about height. You're thinking about like
that. It has to factor into it, man. Yeah, he's tiny. He's
That's
like
fair.
He's like 180, dude. He looks like a slot receiver prospect. He looks like Tank Dell or something.
Tank Dell. I guess Drew Brees was like low-key thick. Russell Wilson was definitely thick. Baker Mayfield low-key thick.
Tariq Woolen said that Russ's physique looked like a sack of potatoes this year. As somebody who looks like a sack of potatoes, that was a good one.
Oh man.
Yeah. So again, yeah, young, good but tiny. CJ Stroud, like I feel like he's obviously like he can beat Jared Goff. You know, the Georgia game showed he can probably be more, but why didn't you do that in any other game, like ever at Ohio State? Like he literally looked like a robot quarterback until the Georgia game, and then the Georgia game, I was like, oh, this is what a really good quarterback prospect looks like. So
right.
I'd probably feel okay taking him in the first. I just don't know how good he's going to be. Richardson, like you said, he has top 10 traits. You got to teach him how to throw the football. I don't know. There's any other way to put it, man. I think you got to teach him how to throw the football with some accuracy. And then Levis, like you said, everybody, he's the white guy that everybody's gonna love. But he's probably like, to me, he's like a Mac Jones level prospect. I said Mac Jones was a second round grade, and I feel okay about that. How he's played so far, his value probably bumps him up to a first rounder, but I don't hate that.
I think the second round grade is fair, but I don't think I think the second round grade is fair for Mac, but not for Levis. Because I don't think Levis should be like a top 5 pick, but I think he should still be a first rounder because like Mac like can only survive based on like his brain, which isn't a lot in the NFL when there's like the world's best athletes all over you, or at least the countries, I guess.
It's interesting because Mac Jones is
Levis actually has like a plan B available with his athleticism, and that's a pretty big game changer. Like mobile quarterbacks are so valuable.
That's fair. Look at us talking quarterbacks on a Jacksonville Jaguars podcast where they can literally just kick their feet back and not watch tape on any of these guys. Hey, it was so funny when Doug talked about them adding EJ Perry last year. He was like, "Yeah, I like this tape. Press like this tape. Mike McCoy watched this tape." And I'm like, "You guys had this many people devoting time to watching EJ Perry tape?
That many people high up too, not just like
that's what the draft is, dude. Like these guys don't need some. Like I guarantee you, Heath Farwell is going to be watching like punters or something."
Sheesh. Well, was there anything else you're going to be watching in Indianapolis? Did we cover it all?
Who asked the worst questions to draft prospects? There's going to be somebody who I will just detest being there that day. There's going to be. I know it, Gus. I can feel it in my bones.
Do you have a person in mind too?
No,
I do. Yeah, you do.
No, and
I'll rise with Bean.
Huh?
Never mind. What were you saying?
With B. The hell rhymes with B?
Bean.
I don't know what you're talking about. We'll move on.
Gene.
I
Gene.
love Gene. I love Gene. What do you mean, dude? Gene invented the Chiefs touchdowns. I'm always grateful to be in his presence. Gene's a sweet guy. Sweet.
Great interviewer, huh?
Yeah,
I hear
he
those
is.
words.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I mean, ultimately, like the combine is so weird to me because, like, in a lot of ways, it feels like the draft process shouldn't start until after the combine because that's when you have like kind of the full picture, like on guys like athleticism, production, everything like that. But the draft is also like almost here already, dude. It's crazy how close this thing is. So, I mean, just watching as many guys as I can beforehand, and really, like I said earlier, putting my ear to the ground and trying to see what people think about, the Jaguars. I'm gonna try to find one team executive of somebody that the Jaguars beat who can be just completely pissed off at them. That's my goal.
And give you like a good, just like
Yeah,
take like
I remember a couple
even
years
one that
ago
you
I
don't
rode an
use.
elevator. A couple years ago I rode an elevator in, I want to say it was in Mobile, with a guy from the Raiders who was still pissed about the Jags and Doug Marrone beating them in their last game in Vegas. And he legit was like, yeah, I wouldn't pee on them if they were on fire and stuff like that. I was like, hey, thanks,
Oh
man.
my god.
Yeah, so
Sheesh.
I'm trying to find that. Trying to find that. Pretty sure that was just a scout, but trying to find that.
Good luck. You got any hot takes before we get out of here?
I said earlier, but I guess it's a hot take on Jack's Twitter, but I think you can take Ringo at 24 and lead the lead the draft happy. My other, I guess, hot take would be I know a lot of people said no to it. NFL.com suggested it. I tweeted it out, but if you can find a trade partner for Roy Robertson Harris, huh? Because if you're going to release him anyways, it's the same money either way if you release him or you trade him. At least this way you get a pick for him. So, I mean, like I would do that. I would take like a 6th round pick for him.
What I don't know if I'm like what team would trade a 6th round pick for Robbie Robertson Harris being paid $10 million? Or would it go
Cleveland Brown,
further down than that with a trade?
Las Vegas Raiders.
That's a pretty good one.
There you go.
I could see it.
Next.
I could see it.
Next. Yeah, that's probably a fair point. That's probably then you were going to ask yourself why the Jaguars going to pay him $10 million.
I would say I would definitely be interested if another team was interested.
A lot of people were saying like equivocally like no.
So trading Roy Robertson Harris? Well, it's just because they don't want to draft Brian Breesy at 24 overall.
You want to.
It would be kind of funny content. It would take me like a couple minutes to get over, and once I got over it, it would be hilarious.
Is it wrong ethically to say it's just like Taven Bryan PTSD? Like, because that's what it is,
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
But it's like, yeah. He's also like, even like without Taven Bryan, to be fair, he's like a pretty unexciting prospect just because he hasn't done a lot the past few years at Clemson.
He was better as a true freshman, which you never really want to see the case be for prospects. You want to see them, obviously improve as they go.
Right. I was going to say the other thing was he was good in high school because I feel like every single time someone says his name, they mention that he was like the former #1 overall recruit. But I haven't really done much since then.
Yeah. No, we've gotten to the point with guys who are draft eligible now who, when I was like doing research on Ringo, like SI started putting out like their own, like their, like the Sports Illustrated, like high school, like team of the year, like the top prospects at each position. And like Ringo and his Georgia profile, it says he was named to it. So I'm like, dang, man, I'm getting old. Like these guys, like I'm starting to see guys who, like when I started this job were like in high school are now like about to be 1st-round picks. Crazy.
You are old, John. All right, my hot take. My hot take is that the Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl next year. That's what I've decided.
I like that hire. The
Monken? Yeah. And then like McDonald, the DC seemed pretty legit like late last season. Roquan Smith changed the whole offense. Like I feel like they need to address corner and receiver. and then like add depth everywhere else, and then they're pretty cool. I mean, and then obviously sign Lamar, but I can't see a way that he's like at least not playing on a franchise tag or signs a long-term deal. The longer it drags out, like the sketchier it gets, but I feel like he's got to stay a Raven.
You don't think they trade Lamar?
I mean, they would probably get like a haul
Yeah.
and a half.
What was the report? That they're over like $100 million in guaranteed money apart?
In terms of like contract negotiations, I didn't see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, they're $100 million in guaranteed money, like apart in negotiations. But not even in total money, like guaranteed
They'll
money.
figure it out.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, this was a pretty early podcast. No one will listen back to this.
No, I'm gonna remember this.
Unless I'm right.
I'm gonna remember this. All right, I'll give you my
I was
football
just
winner.
looking. All right, what's yours?
No, I said next podcast.
Okay, next podcast. Yeah,
You gotta no, you can't change from the Ravens now. You cannot change. I don't care if Anthony Brown starts 17 games with them next year. The Ravens are your Super Bowl pick, and I will monitor all of your content from here
way
to make sure you pick the Ravens. And every time you don't, I'm
bullying. This is bullying.
So,
I can change it before the season starts. I'm doing it in my hot take, not like official predictions. We need I should have put a graphic up so you knew it didn't count as a real thing.
So hot takes mean nothing to you.
I didn't say that. You're jumping to a lot of extremes here, John.
See, you're projecting.
You're projecting. No, you're projecting. All right. Well, the Ravens are winning the Super Bowl until further notice.
Thank you. That's all I ask.
All right. Well, John, hope you have a good, safe trip. Get a lot of stories, a lot of good experience, a lot of good food.
Flying this time, not driving.
Attaboy. First class, private,
nope.
PG,
nope.
PJ.
Nope.
All right. Well, have a good trip, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Thanks. Yep.
Thanks to all the listeners. Thank you. That was weird. Bye.
What he said.
Oh, I don't know how to do like the outros, but whatever.